Hello, whiskey lovers. Okay, so it's now the fourth week of January. Last week we did the club tasting, and also within the last fortnight I did some overtime because we're so incredibly short-staffed, and thus I decided to treat myself and bought myself some Highland Park 12-year-old Viking Honour. Now, we've had a Highland Park before. It was the Viking Scars, which was their 10-year-old. So we'll just do a brief recap of the distillery because it's a very fascinating story. So Highland Park is found in the centre of the Orkney Islands, which is the island archipelago on the northernmost part of Scotland. It is a very, very harsh conditions. Recently on a live stream with one of the Highland Park distillers, was telling us that there was a lot of dispute over the actual number of islands in the archipelago because the official definition of island differs to the sedentary definition of islands. And apparently their definition of island is if you can put a sheep on that for a year and it lives, it's an island. So it was home to a Norse settlement, so a lot of the time they very much defer to their Norse ancestry more so than to their Scottish heritage. Hence Viking Honour, Viking Scars. Now the Highland Park distillery itself was originally founded by Magnus Uson, who was a butcher and a church official by day, illicit whiskey trader by night. Because the islands are so far north and in very, very harsh conditions, it was very rare for the excess men to get out that far, but they would eventually get there. And he used his position in the church to basically hide his whiskey operation. As rumour has it, he had hid it in the bullet, and one story I read was having a word of the exciseman coming, he put the whiskey into a casket and held impromptu funeral. Eventually he was caught in 1798, and eventually the Highland Park distillery was seized and eventually sold to a group of men, which included the excisemen who actually arrested Magnus. So, and that distillery sat on site and still produces whiskey to this day. Now, the Orkney Islands, which are named for the orca, so I'm assuming you can probably see them or they've frequented the islands, uses its own peat, which is supposed to be a higher octane than normal Highland peat. So, let's give this one a whirl. I wish I still had some of the Viking Scars. I would love to do a taste between them. Okay, so we've got the typical golden colour of the whiskey. Bit pale, nothing wrong with that. Very floral. For a whiskey that uses peat in its production, it's not very peaty at all. There's honey, some citrus fruits. You know, like I said, very floral, honey sweet, with a touch of citrus fruits, maybe a hint of vanilla. Now there's the peat. It's very, very light, but it's there. It's a very subtle peat, but it's there, maybe because I was looking for it. Taste a bit of orange, and it's sweet. So a very subtle hint of peat, citrusy, more on the orange side. flavour there, not quite. So its finish is, there's a nice peppery aftertaste, but there's something else there. It's not quite oak, but it's got like a woody sort of flavour to it. Whatever it is, I quite like it. Alright, so you've got a very nice, it's very simple, not a lot of complex tastes to it. But it's sweet. Only a slight hint of peat. Yeah, I highly recommend it. So, 12-year-old Viking Honour. So until next time, Santé.